What are the top three death thrash albums of all time? Hey everyone, Mike here with Extreme Metal Magazine. Welcome back to another video. Now, this is an interesting topic. It's one of these topics that kind of fascinates me. And when I really think about this genre, death thrash, to me, it may be the best genre of extreme metal. I love thrash metal. I love death metal. And this is kind of a combining of the two of them. But I don't necessarily think it's ever a genre that was fully formed. It kind of just happened by accident. At least that's my opinion. I know people are going to say all genres maybe happen by accident, but death thrash, when I really think about the origins of death thrash, I think about none other than Sepultura, one of my favorite extreme bands of all time. And their first album, Bestial Devastation and Morbid Visions, those first two things in 1985 and 86, you could say that those are very early death metal, proto-death metal, extremely early in the death metal scene. But by the time 1987 came around and they released Schizophrenia, which is a phenomenal album, it seemed like they wanted to leave death metal behind, but they were still pushing the limits of thrash. I mean, to me, I really think that's what death thrash is, which is pushing the limits of thrash metal as fast as you can go, and most importantly, with harsher and more guttural vocals. So that's why, to me, now I'm not going to be ranking these albums, I'm just going to be labeling three, and then I'll really be curious to hear what your opinion is down in the comment section down below. That's why the comment section is so vital. Love to hear what you have to say on this. But, Sepultura, Schizophrenia, that definitely has got to be one of the top death thrash albums of all time. It's a brutal release. It just opens up so fast with From the Past Comes the Storm. It's just such a aggressive album. And again, it's pushing the limits of what thrash metal is. That to me is really what death thrash is, just pushing it to the nth degree, almost into death metal. So that's why I love it. It's just a pushing of the boundaries, and it's a phenomenal, phenomenal genre, and Schizophrenia is a phenomenal release. Now, we have Incubus, who would later go on to be known as Opprobrium. Now, Incubus in 1988 released Serpent Temptation. Now, if you've never had a chance to listen to this, we've talked a little bit about this album on this channel. This is a phenomenal album, truly rooted in the underground. And it is a vicious album, an extremely brutal album. A lot of people think this may be the most brutal album of the decade. I know that's probably not going to be what a lot of people think, but I have read some moments on the internet where people would say, Serpent Temptation is extremely brutal. And again, it's a thrash metal fast album that's just pushing it gutturally, and it's just played so over the top that it falls into that death thrash category. The opening track, Battle of Armageddon, is just so heavy, so catchy, and I think that's also a great trademark of this genre, which is extremely catchy parts, chugging and heavy, and just bludgeoningly fast, almost you can't discern anything. That's kind of what, if I had to describe Serpent Temptation, that's kind of what I would describe it as. Extremely catchy moments, and extremely fast to where it's a sound of wall, a wall of sound. You just can't hear anything. And I think that's a great mixture. What more can you ask for than extremely brutal, what you expect extreme metal to be, but then it slows down to chugging riffs that are extremely catchy. And even in the making of this video, I want to go back and listen to Serpent Temptation again. Such a great album, such an unknown album in extreme metal history. 1988. So far we got Schizophrenia and Serpent Temptation. Now this third one, there's probably going to be, depending on how well this video does, there's probably going to be a bit of controversy or backlash, but I'm calling the third one the third best death thrash album of all time to be Pleasure to Kill by Kreator. Now, Kreator released Endless Pain in 1985, and that's a phenomenal record, but Pleasure to Kill is really considered their seminal masterpiece. And a lot of people, because this came out at the end of 1986, so Master of Puppets had already come out in March of 86. Rain and Blood had come out, I believe, in October of 86. So at the end of 86, we have Pleasure to Kill by Creator. And this is hailed as something that was extremely important in the burgeoning death metal scene. I mean, if you think about it, at the end of 1986, Chuck is recording Scream Bloody Gore. So this album came out before they really recorded Scream Bloody Gore. So obviously they came up with the material maybe at the end of 85 or at the beginning of 86. So this was extremely important in the death metal scene. And, you know, as we all know, Creator would go on to become more of a traditional thrash metal band in 1987 and 1989 with their albums Terrible Certainty in 87 and 1989 Beneath the Remains. So very similar to what I see happening with Sepultura, which is in 89 Beneath the Remains, they became more of a traditional thrash metal band. They left that death thrash behind. Now, you could always argue they have it, even on a rise, you know, Sepultura that is, but, you know, who knows? Really, I think Schizophrenia can be categorized as death thrash. And for the purpose of this video, I'm categorizing Pleasure to Kill as death thrash because it's thrash metal as far as you can push it almost into the death metal genre. So that's why I'm calling it death thrash. You know, Pleasure to Kill, Creator, the songs are extremely fast, extremely brutal. The vocals are very brutal, you know, and that's what you expect in death metal. You know, you don't really expect, not saying always, but a lot of times in thrash metal, you don't have the most brutal, low-toned, guttural vocals. So that's what we get on Pleasure to Kill. Millie really chugged out some brutal vocals with Pleasure to Kill. So that's it from me. Those are the top three that I'm thinking of right now. I know there's so many albums out there. I'd really love to hear from you all. And I'd say the coolest thing about the comment section is I learned so many albums and so many bands that maybe I've heard of and I haven't listened to, or maybe I've never heard of and never listened to. So really would love to hear your thoughts on this down in the comment section down below. What are some of the top death thrash albums that you think of? You heard from me on Schizophrenia, Creator, and you heard from me on those three. So you got it. Three from me, three amazing death thrash albums. Love to hear from you down in the comment section down below. And as always, stay metal.